Rain lashed against the windows. Thunder rattled the old building. I was alone, working the night shift at the Grandview Psychiatric Hospital. The wind howled like a banshee, echoing my loneliness. I walked the halls, checking locks on doors that held secrets. Each footstep echoed in the vast emptiness. A chill ran down my spine, and it wasn't just the drafts. I glanced at the clock, almost midnight. Just a few more hours, I muttered to myself, my voice a whisper in the stillness. The storm intensified. The power flickered. My heart pounded. Shadows danced in the hallway, cast by the lightning flashes. The old building creaked and groaned. I sat alone in the office, the only sound the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock. The silence was unnerving. A sudden bang! My heart leaped into my throat. I spun around, searching the darkness for the source of the noise. Nothing, just the wind, I whispered, trying to convince myself. But my hands trembled. I tried to focus on work, but the storm made concentration impossible. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I felt like I was being watched. Then I heard it again, a soft thud, this time from down the hall. My blood ran cold. It definitely wasn't the wind. I gripped the heavy Maglite flashlight on the desk. A cold sweat prickled my skin. I had to investigate. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the office and into the hallway. The darkness seemed to press in on me. The floorboards creaked under my weight. Each step was a hesitant move into the unknown. My pulse quickened with every shadow that danced at the edge of my vision. The sound came again. A dragging noise, slow and deliberate. I froze, listening intently. Fear coiled in my gut. I crept closer to the sound, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The air grew heavy, thick with a strange metallic scent. At the end of the hall, a door stood ajar. The dragging sound seemed to emanate from within. I approached the door slowly, every sense on high alert. The night was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. Each step I took seemed to echo louder than the last, reverberating through the empty hallway. The phone line on the wall crackled, a burst of static breaking the silence. It was an old rotary phone, the kind you only see in movies now. The static was relentless, as if trying to communicate something from beyond. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a reminder of my growing fear. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears, drowning out any rational thought. I pushed the door open, the flashlight beam illuminating a dusty old patient room. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, and the floor was covered in a thick layer of dust, undisturbed for years. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. It was almost suffocating, making it hard to breathe. The scent was a mix of old wood, mold, and something else I couldn't quite place. Goosebumps erupted on my arms, a physical manifestation of the dread that was settling in my bones. The temperature seemed to drop, the cold seeping into my skin. The room was empty except for a single bed with rusted chains hanging from the headboard. The sight was unsettling, raising questions I didn't want to answer. Who had been here? And why the chains? The dragging sound had stopped. The silence was deafening, amplifying the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. It was as if the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. A cold draft swirled around my ankles, sending shivers up my spine. It felt unnatural, as if the very air was alive and watching me. I shone the flashlight under the bed. Nothing, just empty space and more dust. But the absence of anything only heightened my anxiety. But the feeling of unease intensified. It was as if the room was closing in on me, the walls pressing closer, the air growing thicker. I knew I had to leave, but something held me there, rooted to the spot. The sense of dread was overwhelming, a dark cloud that refused to lift. Suddenly the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. I stumbled back, heart racing. The phone line crackled again, louder this time. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Only silence answered me. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy. I fumbled for the flashlight, my fingers clumsily trying to switch it back on. The bulb flickered weakly, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. And that's when I saw it, a figure silhouetted in the doorway, tall and menacing. The phone on the desk in the hallway shrieked, piercing the silence. I jumped, spinning around to face the sound. The figure in the doorway was gone. Adrenaline surged through me. I raced back down the hallway, my flashlight beam dancing erratically. The phone continued to ring, each ring a sharp jolt to my nerves. I snatched up the receiver, my voice breathless. "Hello? Hello?" Static. Then a voice, low and guttural, whispered my name. The line went dead. Ice water flowed through my veins. I slammed the phone back on its cradle, my heart hammering in my chest. Fear propelled me towards the front door. The rain outside pounded against the windows, mirroring the chaos inside my mind. I could barely think straight, but I knew I had to move. I had to get out of there. But as I reached the door, my blood ran cold. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Scrawled across it in what looked like blood was a message, my name. The letters dripped ominously, each drop echoing in the silence. It felt like a cruel joke, a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, and below it a single word, run. Panic seized me, my mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. Who could have done this? Why? The questions swirled around, but there was no time for answers. I rattled the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if the house itself was conspiring against me, trapping me in this living nightmare. My breath came in short, ragged gasps as I fought against the rising tide of terror. I was trapped. I spun around, searching for another way out. Every shadow seemed to move, every creak of the floorboards a sinister whisper. I felt the walls closing in, the darkness pressing down on me. The phone began to ring again, the sound echoing in the stillness like a death knell. Each ring was a reminder of the danger I was in, a chilling call that sent shivers down my spine. I knew I had to answer it, but dread filled me at the thought of who might be on the other end. I ignored the phone, my mind racing. The rain pounded against the windows, each drop a reminder of the urgency of my situation. The phone's incessant ringing was like a siren, pulling me back to the reality I was trying to escape. There had to be another way out. The room was cluttered with old furniture and boxes, making it difficult to move quickly. I pushed aside a stack of papers, hoping to find a hidden door or passage, a window, a fire escape, anything. The darkness outside was impenetrable, but I knew there had to be some way to escape this nightmare. I felt along the walls, searching for any sign of an exit. Then I remembered the old records room. It was a place I had only been to once, but it might hold the key to my escape. The memory was faint, but it was my only lead. It was at the back of the building, and it had a small window. The storm outside made it difficult to see, but I knew if I could just reach that window I might have a chance. It was a long shot, but it was my only hope. The room was filled with old files and dusty shelves, but I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this would work. The phone continued to ring, the incessant sound driving me mad. Each ring was a reminder of the danger I was in and the urgency of finding a way out. I raced down the hallway, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The building seemed to stretch on forever, each turn leading to another dark corridor. My heart pounded in my chest as I ran. I reached the records room and fumbled for the light switch. My hands were shaking, and it took a moment to find the switch in the darkness. The bulb flickered to life, revealing a dusty, forgotten space. The room was filled with old records and papers, but my eyes were fixed on the small window at the back. It was my only chance, and I had to take it. I rushed to the window and yanked it open. Rain lashed against my face, but my relief was short-lived. The window was barred. Despair washed over me. I was trapped. I turned away from the window, my heart pounding in my chest. And that's when I saw him. Standing in the doorway, shrouded in shadow. The figure. He was real. He smiled, a slow, chilling smile that revealed rows of sharp teeth. In his hand, he held a rusty hook. The phone continued to ring.